Are you eating less, trying to lose weight, but your belly fat, fatigue, and brain fog keep getting worse? What if the real problem isn't just your weight, but your liver? Because here's what's really going on inside your body. Your liver is one of the most powerful metabolic organs you have. It regulates blood sugar, fat burning, hormones, detoxification, cholesterol, energy production, inflammation. And when fat begins accumulating inside the liver, something now affecting millions of people worldwide, the entire metabolic system starts slowing down. This condition is called fatty liver disease. And what's alarming is that many people have it without realizing it. They may experience fatigue, brain fog, belly fat, high triglycerides, insulin resistance, poor energy, difficulty losing weight. But because symptoms often develop slowly, the condition can remain hidden for years. Now, many people assume fatty liver only affects heavy alcohol drinkers. That's no longer true. Today, one of the fastest growing health problems is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, often driven by excess sugar, refined carbohydrates, insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, sedentary lifestyles, poor sleep, ultra-processed foods. And this matters because the liver acts almost like the body's metabolic control center. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your liver like the engine management system in a car. If the engine becomes clogged with fat and inflammation, performance drops everywhere. Fuel efficiency declines. Energy production suffers. Systems stop communicating properly. That's exactly what happens metabolically when the liver becomes overloaded. Now, here's the encouraging part. The liver is also incredibly regenerative. Few organs in the human body have the repair capacity the liver does. And what the research shows is that lifestyle interventions, especially nutrition, movement, sleep, and metabolic repair, can dramatically improve fatty liver in many individuals. That's powerful, because this is not simply about weight loss. It's about restoring metabolic function at the root level. In today's video, we're going to break down what actually causes fatty liver, why insulin resistance is central to the problem, the foods most strongly linked to liver fat accumulation, the fastest natural strategies that may help reverse fatty liver, the role of fasting and metabolic flexibility, and practical daily habits that support liver repair naturally. Because once you understand how the liver works, you begin realizing that many modern symptoms are not isolated problems. They are signs of metabolic overload. And the good news is this: the body often responds remarkably well when you remove the constant stressors driving the dysfunction. If this kind of science-based health content is helpful to you, consider subscribing. Because every week, we break down complex medical science into practical tools people can use to improve their health naturally. Because protecting your liver may be one of the most important things you can do for your energy, metabolism, brain health, fat loss, and long-term longevity. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to reverse fatty liver is focusing only on calories. But here's what's really going on inside your body. Fatty liver is not simply a calorie problem. It is primarily a metabolic signaling problem. And at the center of that problem is insulin resistance. Now, insulin is one of the most important hormones in the human body. Its job is to help move glucose from the bloodstream into cells where it can be used for energy. In healthy conditions, insulin rises after meals and then falls again. But modern eating patterns often keep insulin elevated almost constantly. Why? Because many people consume refined carbohydrates, sugary beverages, ultra-processed foods, frequent snacks, late-night meals, all while remaining physically inactive. Over time, cells become less responsive to insulin's signal. That condition is called insulin resistance. And when insulin resistance develops, the liver becomes one of the first organs affected. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine insulin like a key trying to unlock doors on cells. At first, the key works normally, but after constant exposure, the locks stop responding efficiently. So the body produces even more insulin trying to force glucose into cells. And chronically elevated insulin changes liver metabolism dramatically. Insulin resistance, liver fat plus fat, burning insulin resistance, right arrow, up arrow, liver fat plus down arrow, fat burning insulin resistance, liver fat versus fat burning. Now here's the critical part many people don't realize. High insulin levels tell the body to store energy, not burn it. And the liver begins converting excess glucose, especially fructose and refined carbohydrates, into fat through a process called de novo lipogenesis. In simple terms, the liver starts manufacturing fat internally. Over time, that fat accumulates inside liver cells themselves. And once liver fat increases, the liver becomes less efficient at regulating blood sugar, processing fats, managing inflammation, supporting energy metabolism. This creates a vicious cycle. More insulin resistance, more liver fat, more inflammation, less fat burning, and many people become trapped in that cycle for years without understanding the root cause. Now let's talk specifically about sugar, especially fructose, because this is one of the biggest drivers of fatty liver in the modern world. Unlike glucose, which can be used throughout the body, fructose is processed primarily by the liver. Small amounts from whole fruits are generally not the issue because fruit also contains fiber, water, polyphenols, micronutrients. The bigger problem is concentrated added sugar, soda, fruit juice, sweetened coffee drinks, candy, desserts, processed snacks, high fructose corn syrup. When large amounts of fructose hit the liver repeatedly, the liver converts much of that excess into fat. This is one reason sugary beverages are so strongly associated with fatty liver disease. Liquid sugar is especially problematic because it enters the bloodstream rapidly without creating strong satiety signals. People often consume enormous amounts without realizing it. Now, another important point. Fatty liver is deeply connected to visceral fat. Visceral fat is the deep abdominal fat surrounding internal organs. And metabolically, visceral fat is highly inflammatory. It releases inflammatory compounds that worsen insulin resistance and place additional stress on the liver. This is why waist circumference often matters more metabolically than overall body weight alone. Now here's the encouraging news. Fatty liver often improves significantly when insulin levels fall and metabolic flexibility improves. And one of the fastest ways to begin shifting that process is reducing the foods that constantly spike insulin and overwhelm the liver. That means prioritizing whole foods, protein, fiber-rich vegetables, healthy fats, stable blood sugar, reduced added sugars. Now, this does not mean perfection, and it does not mean fear of all carbohydrates. Context matters. Whole food carbohydrates behave very differently from ultra-processed sugars and refined starches. For example, lentils, beans, vegetables, berries, whole oats contain fiber and nutrients that slow absorption and improve satiety. Meanwhile, highly refined foods create rapid glucose and insulin spikes with very little nutritional value. Now, another overlooked factor is meal frequency. Many people never allow insulin to fall because they eat continuously throughout the day. Breakfast, snacks, sugary drinks, late-night eating, constant feeding keeps the liver in storage mode. And this is why metabolic flexibility becomes so important. The body needs periods where insulin lowers enough to access stored energy efficiently again. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing, because understanding insulin resistance and liver metabolism gives you practical tools that can dramatically improve energy, fat loss, and long-term metabolic health naturally. Now let's talk about one of the fastest and most powerful strategies for helping the liver repair itself naturally. Lowering the constant metabolic pressure placed on the liver every single day. Because here's what's really going on inside your body. The liver is constantly processing incoming energy. Every meal, every snack, every sugary drink, every late night craving. And when energy intake becomes excessive, especially from refined carbohydrates and sugar, the liver rarely gets a break from storage mode. This is why meal timing and fasting have become such important areas of metabolic research. Now, to be clear, fasting is not magic, and it is not appropriate for everyone. But metabolically, periods without constant food intake may help lower insulin levels and allow the body to transition from energy storage toward energy utilization. That shift matters enormously for fatty liver. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your liver like a warehouse receiving deliveries nonstop. If trucks keep arriving all day and all night, the warehouse never has time to organize, process, or clear inventory. Eventually, the warehouse becomes overloaded. That's similar to what constant eating can do metabolically. But when food intake pauses for a period of time, the liver finally gets an opportunity to mobilize stored fat, improve insulin sensitivity, reduce circulating insulin, support metabolic cleanup pathways. And one of the key concepts here is metabolic flexibility. Metabolic flexibility is the body's ability to switch efficiently between burning glucose, burning stored fat. Many people with fatty liver lose this flexibility because insulin remains elevated constantly. Insulin, fat mobilization, liver fat down arrow, insulin or right arrow, shoop arrow, fat mobilization, or right arrow, or down arrow, liver fat, insulin, fat mobilization, liver fat. Now, one of the simplest ways many people begin improving metabolic flexibility is reducing constant snacking. This alone can make a major difference because every time we eat, especially refined carbohydrates and sugary foods, insulin rises again. And if insulin never falls adequately, fat burning remains suppressed. Now, another major issue is late night eating. The body's metabolism follows circadian rhythms. Your liver, hormones, digestion, and insulin sensitivity all operate on internal biological clocks. And research increasingly suggests that eating heavily late at night may worsen blood sugar regulation, insulin resistance, fat storage, liver stress. This is why many people benefit from earlier eating windows and avoiding large late-night meals whenever possible. Now let's talk about what actually happens during liver fat reduction. As insulin levels improve and inflammation decreases, the liver gradually becomes more efficient at exporting and utilizing stored fat. Over time, this may improve energy levels, triglycerides, blood sugar control, mental clarity, waist circumference, metabolic flexibility, and importantly, even modest weight loss can dramatically improve fatty liver markers in many individuals. Research has shown that losing even 5–10% of body weight may significantly reduce liver fat and inflammation. That's encouraging because it means meaningful metabolic improvement can occur before dramatic physical transformation happens externally. Now, another fascinating process connected to fasting is autophagy. Autophagy is often described as a cellular cleanup and recycling process. During periods of reduced nutrient intake, the body may increase repair and recycling pathways that help remove damaged cellular components. Again, this is not a cure-all, but metabolically, the body behaves very differently when it is constantly overloaded versus when it periodically enters repair mode. Now, here's something extremely important. The goal is not starvation. The goal is metabolic balance. Extreme restriction often backfires because it increases stress hormones, disrupts sustainability, and may damage muscle mass over time. Sustainable liver repair comes from consistent metabolic improvement, not punishment. Now let's make this practical. Some strategies many people find helpful include avoiding sugary beverages completely, reducing ultra-processed foods, increasing protein intake, eating more fiber-rich vegetables, creating overnight fasting windows, walking after meals, avoiding late-night eating. Even simple post-meal walks can improve glucose handling dramatically. Why? Because muscles help absorb circulating glucose more efficiently, reducing the burden on the liver. Now, another overlooked factor is muscle mass itself. Muscle acts almost like a glucose reservoir. The more metabolically active muscle tissue you maintain, the more efficiently the body can manage blood sugar. This is why resistance training is so powerful for fatty liver improvement. Not because exercise burns calories alone, but because it improves insulin sensitivity at the root level. Again, everything is connected. The liver, insulin, muscles, sleep, stress, inflammation, meal timing. And once you understand the body as an integrated metabolic system, fatty liver begins making much more sense. Now let's talk about the foods that can either accelerate liver damage or help the liver recover and regenerate naturally. Because one of the most powerful truths in metabolic medicine is this: the liver responds remarkably quickly to nutritional change, and that's encouraging. Because while fatty liver can become serious over time, the body often begins improving once the constant metabolic stress is removed. Now here's what's really going on inside your body. Every food you eat sends biochemical instructions. Some foods increase inflammation and fat storage. Others improve insulin sensitivity, reduce oxidative stress, and support liver repair pathways. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming all dietary fat causes fatty liver. That's not what the science shows. In many cases, refined sugar and processed carbohydrates are far more damaging metabolically than healthy natural fats. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine the liver like a processing plant. If the plant receives stable, nutrient-dense materials, it operates efficiently. But if it's constantly flooded with processed sugar, industrial oils, and refined starches, the machinery becomes overwhelmed and inflamed. That's essentially what happens metabolically. Now let's start with one of the most important liver-supportive nutrients: fiber. Fiber helps slow glucose absorption, improve satiety, support gut bacteria, reduce insulin spikes, improve cholesterol regulation. And importantly, fiber reduces the metabolic burden placed on the liver after meals. Foods rich in fiber include vegetables, lentils, beans, chia seeds, flax seeds, oats, berries. Now, another incredibly important category is polyphenol-rich foods. Polyphenols are natural plant compounds associated with reduced oxidative stress and healthier inflammatory signaling. And oxidative stress plays a major role in fatty liver progression. As fat accumulates in liver cells, inflammation and oxidative damage often increase. This is why antioxidant-rich foods become important, especially green tea, berries, extra virgin olive oil, coffee, dark leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables. Now, coffee is particularly interesting. Multiple studies have associated regular coffee consumption with better liver outcomes and reduced liver fibrosis risk in some populations. That surprises many people because coffee is often misunderstood metabolically. But black coffee, without excessive sugar and syrups, contains bioactive compounds that may support liver health. Now, another critical category is protein. Many people with metabolic dysfunction underconsume protein while overconsuming refined carbohydrates. Protein helps preserve muscle mass, improve satiety, stabilize blood sugar, support metabolic flexibility, and maintaining muscle is essential for improving insulin sensitivity because muscle tissue helps absorb glucose from the bloodstream more efficiently. Now let's talk about healthy fats. Foods like avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, fatty fish contain nutrients associated with healthier inflammatory balance and metabolic function. Whole foods plus at stable, insulin, liver inflammation plus fat burning whole foods plus stable insulin, right arrow, down arrow, liver inflammation plus up arrow, fat burning whole foods, stable. Insulin, liver inflammation plus fat burning. Again, healthy fats consumed in the context of whole food nutrition behave very differently from ultra-processed industrial foods. Now, one of the most damaging categories for fatty liver is sugary beverages. This includes soda, sweetened teas, energy drinks, excess fruit juice, sugary coffee beverages. Liquid sugar enters rapidly and places an enormous metabolic burden on the liver. And because liquid calories produce weak satiety signals, people often consume far more than they realize. Now, another major issue is ultra-processed foods overall. Many processed foods contain combinations of refined flour, sugar, industrial oils, additives, excess sodium. This combination creates highly rewarding foods that are easy to overconsume while offering very little metabolic support. Meanwhile, whole foods naturally regulate appetite more effectively because they contain fiber, water, micronutrients, protein, natural food structure. Now here's another fascinating connection. The gut microbiome also influences liver health directly through what scientists call the gut-liver axis. An unhealthy gut may increase inflammatory compounds entering circulation, placing additional stress on the liver. This is why improving gut health often supports liver repair simultaneously. Again, the body operates as an interconnected system. Now let's make this practical. A simple liver supportive plate often looks like protein source, fiber-rich vegetables, healthy fats, minimal refined sugar, minimal ultra-processed foods, simple, sustainable, biologically supportive. And importantly, consistency matters far more than temporary extreme diets because the liver responds to repeated signals over time, not occasional detoxes. In reality, your liver is already your detoxification organ. The goal is not forcing detoxification. The goal is removing the constant overload, preventing the liver from functioning efficiently in the first place. And when many people finally reduce that overload, energy often improves, inflammation decreases, waist circumference changes, mental clarity improves, and metabolic flexibility gradually returns. Now let's explore one of the most overlooked reasons fatty liver becomes so difficult to reverse for many people: chronic stress and poor sleep. Because here's what's really going on inside your body. The liver does not operate independently. It responds continuously to hormonal signals coming from the brain, nervous system, metabolism, and circadian rhythm. And when stress hormones remain elevated chronically, the liver enters a very different metabolic state. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your body like a city operating under emergency conditions. When stress becomes constant, the body behaves as if danger is always present. Resources are redirected toward short-term survival. Blood sugar rises. Cortisol increases, fat storage signals intensify, inflammation increases, recovery pathways decrease. This was useful thousands of years ago during real physical threats. But modern stress is different. Today, stress often becomes chronic. Notifications, financial pressure, poor sleep, constant stimulation, emotional overwhelm, sedentary lifestyles, excess caffeine, lack of recovery, and biologically, the body often responds as though it's trapped in continuous danger. Now, one of the most important hormones involved here is cortisol. Cortisol itself is not bad. It's essential for survival. But chronically elevated cortisol may contribute to increased abdominal fat, blood sugar instability, insulin resistance, increased cravings, sleep disruption, metabolic dysfunction. And all of these place additional pressure on the liver. Chronic stress, cortisol, insulin, resistance plus liver. Fat chronic, stress, and right arrow, hoop arrow. Cortisol, right arrow, hoop arrow, insulin, resistance, plus uparo, liver, fat chronic stress, cortisol, insulin, resistance, liver, fat. Now here's something many people overlook. Poor sleep alone can worsen insulin sensitivity significantly within just a few days. That's powerful, because sleep is not passive. Sleep is one of the body's primary repair mechanisms. During deep sleep, hormones rebalance. The brain clears metabolic waste. Inflammation decreases. Tissue repair increases. Insulin sensitivity improves. Liver recovery processes activate. But when sleep becomes fragmented or chronically shortened, the body becomes metabolically stressed. And this often creates a vicious cycle. Poor sleep increases cravings. Cravings increase sugar intake. Sugar worsens insulin resistance. Insulin resistance worsens fatty liver. Fatty liver worsens energy and inflammation. And the cycle continues. Now, another major issue is circadian disruption. Your liver operates on a biological clock. In fact, liver enzymes, glucose metabolism, insulin sensitivity, and digestion all follow circadian timing patterns. This is why late-night eating can be so damaging metabolically. At night, the body becomes less efficient at handling glucose. Yet many people consume their largest meals late in the evening while simultaneously remaining inactive afterward. That combination places enormous stress on the liver. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful liver healing tools that costs nothing: walking. Especially walking after meals. Even a short 10-15 minute walk after eating can improve glucose handling dramatically. Why? Because muscles absorb glucose directly during movement, reducing the amount the liver must process. This improves insulin sensitivity while lowering blood sugar spikes. Now, resistance training is also incredibly powerful because muscle tissue acts almost like a metabolic sponge. The more healthy muscle mass you maintain, the better your body becomes at regulating glucose and insulin. And remember, insulin resistance is one of the primary drivers of fatty liver. So improving muscle health improves liver health indirectly. Again, everything is connected. Now, another overlooked factor is sitting for prolonged periods. Extended inactivity reduces glucose utilization and metabolic flexibility. Even people who exercise regularly may still experience metabolic problems if they remain sedentary most of the day. This is why movement throughout the day matters, not just workouts. Now, let's make this practical. Some of the most effective liver-supportive habits include sleeping 7-9 hours consistently, getting morning sunlight, avoiding large late-night meals, walking after meals, reducing chronic stress, maintaining muscle mass, creating consistent sleep schedules. Notice something important here. None of these strategies are extreme, because sustainable metabolic healing usually comes from restoring biological rhythms, not forcing the body harder. Now, another critical mindset shift is understanding that healing takes repetition. The liver does not become fatty overnight, and recovery also occurs through repeated healthy signals over time. That's encouraging because small daily changes compound powerfully. Better sleep tonight improves insulin sensitivity tomorrow. One healthy meal improves inflammatory signaling. One walk after dinner improves glucose regulation. 1 week of consistency improves metabolic communication. And over time, those signals begin transforming the environment inside the body, not through shortcuts, but through biology working the way it was designed to work naturally. So after everything we've discussed today, here's the most important message I want you to remember. Fatty liver is not simply a liver problem. It's a metabolic warning sign, a signal that the body is struggling with energy regulation, insulin signaling, inflammation, and metabolic overload. And the encouraging news is this. In many cases, the liver has an extraordinary ability to recover when the root causes are addressed consistently. Because here's what's really going on inside your body. When insulin remains elevated constantly from excessive sugar, refined carbohydrates, ultra-processed foods, poor sleep, stress, and inactivity, the liver shifts into storage mode. Fat accumulates, inflammation rises, energy declines, metabolic flexibility disappears. But when those stressors are reduced, the body often begins shifting in the opposite direction. Insulin sensitivity improves, fat burning increases, inflammation decreases, energy stabilizes, liver fat gradually declines, and that process can begin surprisingly quickly in many people. Now remember, the goal is not perfection. The goal is reducing the constant metabolic overload placed on the liver every day. That's why the foundational strategies matter so much. Reducing added sugar, eliminating sugary beverages, increasing fiber, prioritizing protein, supporting gut health, sleeping consistently, walking daily, building muscle, managing stress, avoiding constant snacking. Simple principles, but biologically powerful. Let me explain this with one final analogy. Think of the liver like a factory operating 24 hours a day. If the factory is constantly overwhelmed with excess incoming material, eventually the machinery slows down and waste begins accumulating. But once the overload decreases, the factory can finally repair, reorganize, and function efficiently again. That's exactly what happens metabolically. And this is why quick fix detoxes often miss the point entirely. Your liver already knows how to detoxify. The real issue is whether you're continuously overloading the system faster than it can recover. Now, another important truth, healing fatty liver is not just about appearance or weight loss. It's about protecting brain health, hormone balance, cardiovascular health, energy production, longevity, cognitive function, metabolic resilience, because the liver influences nearly every major system in the body. And when liver health improves, many people notice better energy, reduced brain fog, improved sleep, better blood sugar control, easier fat loss, reduced cravings, improved focus. Not because of a miracle, but because metabolism is finally becoming more efficient again. Now here's my challenge for you. Pick one liver supportive habit today. Just one. Maybe replace sugary drinks with water or green tea. Walk for 10 minutes after dinner. Stop eating late at night. Add more vegetables and protein. Improve your sleep schedule. Reduce processed foods this week. Then pay attention to how your body responds. Because biology is always listening to the signals you repeat consistently. And small changes repeated daily often become powerful metabolic transformations over time. If this video added value to your life, consider liking the video and subscribing to join a community focused on improving health naturally through science-based strategies. Because when you understand how your metabolism truly works, you become far more empowered to protect your liver, restore your energy, burn fat more efficiently, and support healthier aging naturally for years to come.